What's up, everybody? Today we got a little something special bringing on my man, Zach. Zach is currently at the women's ACC tournament, and so we're just going to talk a little bit about today's game where Tech took down Miami 55 to 47, and a little bit about tomorrow's matchup where the Hokies face off with Notre Dame once again. So, how you doing, Zach?
Hey Kyle, I'm doing great, man. Yeah, just watched the game a couple hours ago. Did my write up, but it was a very interesting game to say the least. It's weird watching this team without Elizabeth Kitley, and I mean overall, I mean a win's a win. So the Hokies are moving on. They're playing in the quarters tomorrow, but we'll get into more of that.
Yeah, definitely found a way to get the W despite, losing fifth year player Elizabeth Kitley, one of the staples of the Hokies team. She just recently won that third ACC player of the year right after she got hurt. I was actually in the middle of recording my last episode when I heard the news. Definitely a big hit for Tech with her being announced out for the rest of the ACC tournament. But Tech did manage to pull off that win. Shooting though, dude, it was terrible.
hmm
What did you see that affected, the Hokies and the Hurricanes in terms of shooting? Did you see anything?
Yeah, well, I mean the defenses for both teams obviously it played a part. The Hokies came out like they were kind of dogging Miami at the start. They didn't have their first three until like I don't know exactly when, but it was
Two
like a
minutes.
just a
Two
top of
minutes
the
left
yeah,
in the
just
fourth.
yeah, just a yeah, it was just like a top of the key like she just shot it like super high archer just went in. But that was their first three of the game. They only made that one. And then for the Hokies too, I mean, the the shooting was not normal for this team. I'm pretty sure they lead the ACC in 3-point percentage and makes, but they shot 5 of 26, and I mean, 2 of those were from Kayla King, which, is good for the Hokies. I mean, if you can get her rolling in these sort of games, like, her that's all she does. She shoots threes. That's what she's supposed to do for this team. She's been doing it ever since she started playing here. So, for her to make, I mean, even 2 threes, I mean, that's good for the Hokies, but, on some other ends, I mean, Samuel 1 for 5, Eck 0 for 5. Georgia Amoore only had 1 3, which, is crazy because she ended up with 27 points. And then Carrie Baker off the bench hit 1 of 3, and then Carly Wenzel 0 of 2. So the shots that the Hokies were getting weren't terrible, to say the least. There were a lot of open shots that they would normally hit, but I mean, they just weren't falling. And even only making 5 threes, they still beat a pretty solid and scrappy Miami team.
Yeah, the threes were really the thing that stood out in terms of the shooting,
Mhm.
especially with Matilda Eck, who's really been a sharpshooter for Tech this whole year, going 0 for 5 from deep, 0 for 7 from the floor. She had
Yeah,
0 points, and
yeah.
she's been really that third scorer for Tech the whole year. And when Liz or Georgia have an off game, she kind of steps up
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
but just nothing from her was wild to watch this game.
Yeah, yeah, she had 0 points in this one. She had 0 points in the previous game against UVA. Um, and she hasn't scored under 10 points in quite a while. I think I went back and she's scoring double digits in like her last 9 games other than these 2, like 9 straight. And also hitting I believe it was 2 threes or 2 or more threes in 9 games straight. Maybe that was it. Yeah, it was 2 plus threes in her last 9 games, not counting this game and the one against UVA. I mean, but normally she's a pretty good producer. I mean, she's been third option for a lot of this year. She has been averaging, I'm not sure, probably around 9, 10 points. I mean, she's been a good solid player for the Hokies. So for her to be shooting the way she is now, it's a bit strange. But like I said earlier, the shots she was getting was good. I mean, she was wide open on a lot of them. A lot of the Miami defenders were obviously drawn to Georgia Amoore, so that opened up more threes for the team. But I mean, today they just didn't knock them down. It could be a whole different story. Tomorrow we could hit 15 plus, and it'd be the same sort of offense we were running. So
Yeah, and with Georgia Amoore missing so many, she really struggled in that first half. She only had 4
Oh,
points,
yeah.
which,
Mhm,
so often at halftime she's got 12, 14, 20
mhm,
even, but only 4 going into the locker room. It was wild to see her missing so many shots.
mhm.
Just no one on the floor could make a thing.
Yeah, speaking about Georgia Amoore, she has had some games where she's gets off on the right foot. She has 12, 14 at the half, and then sometimes it's the same that happened today. She'll have 4 points, 6 points, and then she'll come out in the second half, and I don't know what's maybe Coach Brooks tells her something, or she just locks in, and I mean, she always ends the game with 20 plus. So especially, yeah, the last game against UVA, I believe the first half wasn't too good for her, but I mean, she ended with 39 points, which I guess it was different because Liz Kelly went out in that half. But I mean, for her to do what she did today, um, I was in the press conference and the Miami coach and two of their players were talking about how they thought it was incredible how Georgia Amoore ended with 27 because they thought the whole game they were playing like solid defense, which they were. I mean, she ended the half with only 4 points, and somehow she gets 23 points in the second half. I mean, granted, 10 of those were on free throws, like in garbage time for the Hokies, but I mean, 27 points from Amore. I mean, that's kind of all you can ask from her. She only had one assist though, but it's a bit different when Liz Kelly's obviously not in the lineup and they can't do their usual pick and roll that they're used to.
Yeah, it definitely threw off the system, but I mean, that second half was crazy. She had 15
Yeah.
of her points just in the fourth quarter alone.
Mhm.
Really just pulling Tech along and, getting them to that win. It was so close for so much of the game. And, you know, with such low scoring, you thought if either team can, really figure something out on the offensive end, they're either the Hokies are going to blow out Miami or Miami's going to come back no sweat,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden it's going to be trouble.
I mean, for most of the game, I mean, they were neck and neck. It was up until like 5 minutes in the fourth quarter when the Hokies actually started drawing away, and you kind of look and you're like, man, why did it take them so long to pull away? I mean, they were Miami was within Tech with like 4, 6 points for the most part of this game. I mean, they got within two, they get within one, and then the lead would kind of jump back up to four, back down to two. Like the the stress was really put on the Hokies, and obviously they had pressure without their three-time All ACC Player of the Year, Elizabeth Kitley, um, as well as they're the defending ACC champs, as well as the regular season champs. So, I mean, there's a lot put on their plate, but I mean, they won today. They have a tough game against Notre Dame coming up. Notre Dame just beat Louisville today, so and we know what happened last time the Hokies played Notre Dame. It wasn't too pretty, and Georgia Amoore and Elizabeth Kelly were both shut down in that one. So it's gonna be interesting to see how the Hokies match up once again against Notre Dame, but this time on a neutral floor.
Yeah, before we move into the Notre Dame game, though,
Yeah.
let's talk about Clara Strack for a minute.
Oh yeah.
She stepped in, she filled those Liz Kitley shoes pretty well. The Hokies started Rose Mishaw, though, which
Yeah.
came as a surprise to me because I don't
Mhm.
think she played at all in the month of February.
No,
And,
it's she's
Coach
yeah, her
Brooks
last
threw
game
her
was
in the
around
starting
January.
lineup.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
Did you
So
find that surprising as well?
yeah, I mean, obviously coming into the tournament, it would be surprising, but we know they practiced yesterday morning, and Rose Michelle was with the ones. Claire Strack still with the second team, so it wasn't too much of a surprise, obviously, but it's hard to know because they just practice that in practice, and that's not something that the whole nation or media get to see. So for her to come out and start at center, she did play the five though in at Minnesota, where she averaged 14 and 6, which I mean are pretty good numbers. She's done it before, but in the Hokie system, it was a bit odd to see her there. And granted, she only played 12 minutes. I think Kenny Brooks was just going towards like a kind of a veteran role for her in place of Claire Strack, but Claire Strack played the majority of the minutes. But I think he was trying to get Misha and Strack like a little tandem to make sure that they weren't getting in too much foul trouble, or they were doing it right down lower and trying to keep the scoring up.
Yeah, I think Strack played really well. Finished with
Yeah.
10, 5 rebounds, and 2 blocks. She looked
Hmm.
exactly how we've seen her, especially in that later part of the year where she really started to find her stride. And
Hmm.
just that young Kitley is really the best way to put it. We hear it all the
Yeah.
time. Every time you're at a game, they just call her Little Kitley, and that's really
Hmm.
what she is.
Yeah. I mean, her game is very similar. Of course, they both play really big, but um, Claire Strack has obviously the freshman tendencies that would come with being a freshman. Uh, Her game's not as polished as Kitley, but of course that would make sense. Kitley's been in the league for 5 years. This is her first year. I mean, but for Claire Strack to play as many minutes as she did in the previous games in the regular season, and then right into the ACC tournament quarterfinals, she's basically in a starting role, replacing Kaylee. Like I said, Rose Michelle played 12 minutes, but she played, I think, 28 of those minutes at center. She had 8 of her points at the half, ended with 10. But I mean, just the defensive presence as well. I mean, it definitely reminds us of Elizabeth Kitley. She ended the game with 2 blocks, but just so many times the Miami guards or centers would drive in, and she would just stand there like a statue, hands up. Like she never swung her arms down. I don't think once. I mean, she only ended the game with 1 foul, and I think just on a reach in. But for her to play the defense that she played today, if she can do that tomorrow, I mean, it's definitely a tougher task. Notre Dame has a bunch of bigger guards that can drive, and they're going to make it hard for her to actually wall up because they're going to draw the contact in instead of fading away from her. But I mean, so far, Claire Strack like played great minutes today. Carly Wenzel and then Carrie Baker, all freshmen, but Claire Strack definitely stood out today, and this was kind of her breakout game, or something to give Hokie Nation say, hey, we're gonna have her next year. This could be just as much fun as it was this year.
Yeah, definitely a really solid foundation with those three freshmen for the upcoming years. And then, retaining Matilda Eck and, potentially some of the other players. We'll see what happens over the course of the postseason. But this
Hmm.
game with Notre Dame tomorrow, noon on the ACC network. They beat Louisville earlier today to advance. uh, you know, they've got some really good players. Hannah Hidalgo is going to be a problem. She's been a problem all year for everyone. She was in that ACC Player of the Year runnings as well. Uh,
Hmm.
how do you think the Hokies are going to match up with her and Notre Dame tomorrow after that loss just last week?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, we're gonna expect Hannah Hidalgo to do her thing once again. I mean, she did very good defense on Georgia Amoore the last time out. Obviously, it's a little different. It's a neutral site, so they're not away, which the Hokies have struggled at times. They got their footing later in the year, but I mean, it's never easy to play on the road, especially against Notre Dame, who I believe was number 17 when they took us down. We were number 5, but I mean, Hannah Hidalgo, the aggressiveness is like on par with the nation's best, and she won, I believe, ACC Defensive Player of the Year, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, again, a very tall task for Georgia Amoore because she's obviously right now our designated scorer, and there's no more Liz Cayley to drop the ball down to and maybe alleviate some of that pressure. So it's gonna be interesting to see the matchup once again. I think Georgia Amoore is gonna do a little bit better than she did last time, but I mean it'll certainly be a fun matchup, and I mean we've got that coming up at noon tomorrow, so be ready.
Yeah, you got to hope that, especially that first half, Amore has a little bit better game. With
Yeah.
Kitley out, she really has to lead this crew to victory if they want to keep moving on. Hidalgo, she played pretty well today. 21 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 steals. So, she's going to be active all over offensive and defensive, like we've seen all year from her.
Hmm.
Really talented at the guard position. But Sonia Citron, she actually led Notre Dame today with 26 points. So,
Yeah.
she's going to be a problem on that offensive end for Notre Dame as well. How do you think the likes of, you know, Wenzel and Amoore and those other kind of guards are going to handle
hmm
her?
Yeah, that's also another tough task for the Hokies. Our guards are a bit undersized in relation to Samaya Citron, and Kenny Brooks said in his presser after this game. It's kind of like a preview to Notre Dame, but he spoke really highly about Samaya Citron, and he actually said that she's like one of his favorite players in the ACC, and he really admires her game. So, I mean, she definitely has a scoring ability that might be even better than Hannah Hidalgo's, and we know they have Maddie Westbeld too. Uh, yeah, Westbeld. So it's definitely not going to be easy. There's a lot of scoring options that the Hokies are going to have to cover their basis on. But I mean, if they play the defense that they did today against Miami, I we should see a pretty close game. I don't know who's going to come out on top, but it should be a fun one.
Yeah, definitely going to be a really tough matchup tomorrow. Hokies need to win this game to stay in the tournament.
Yeah.
Um, and then afterwards, they'll be matched up with the winner of game 13.
hmm
Let's see, that's going to be game 10 and game 11 winners. So it's
Yeah.
the winner of
Yeah.
NC
So
State
yeah.
Duke and then the winner of
hmm
Syracuse Florida State.
Yeah. So right now, Syracuse and Florida State are playing. I can hear the announcer going off, but in the previous game that just ended, Duke and NC State. NC State ended up pulling on, I believe, 64-61. But I mean, the ending was crazy. Duke had a couple chances to tie with a three at the end, but they just couldn't get one to fall. So it's going to be NC State moving on, and then they'll play the winner of this game. So I mean, the ACC is as stacked as it gets. So all these games today have been very fun, and then of course tomorrow we have two more great games, and then who matter wins, Florida State or Syracuse, it's going to be a tough matchup against a very good NC State team. So I mean, the ACC just keeps on rolling, and they're going to have like 8, 9 teams in the tournament. So this is all kind of to try to take precedence to try to win the ACC tournament championship. Kind of give yourself a boost going into the tournament. But of course, the ACC is gonna. There's gonna be so many teams. I mean, you would hope that a couple of them would represent the ACC well and go pretty far in the tournament.
Yeah, there were so many teams in the rankings this year. I mean, we had the Hokies, Notre
hmm
Dame was ranked, Syracuse, NC State, you said, UNC was,
Yeah,
I believe, as
UNC was in
well.
there.
Um,
Louisville.
yeah, Louisville as well. There was, 6, 7 ranked teams from the
hmm
ACC, just absolutely stacked conference. I think the Hokies, if they can pull off this win, it'll be really good for them to, boost that ranking a little bit going into the NCAA
hmm
tournament.
Yeah.
Being without Kitley potentially is not a place you want to be. And, to go as far as possible, I think that slightly easier route with a better seating would make a
hmm
huge difference for this group.
Yeah. Yeah, we know if you're a top four seed, you host a regional. So that's kind of what the Hokies are trying to aim for once again. A lot of people thought they had it locked down, even with the loss to Notre Dame. But when the Hokies fell in Charlottesville and then they lost Elizabeth Kelly to injury, obviously, she's been ruled out for the entirety of the ACC tournament, but it's still up in the air whether she's coming back or not. And that could be a play by Kenny Brooks and his staff to try to keep the injury like hush hush, so that their seeding isn't possibly affected. So if they were to come out and say Elizabeth Gilly is out for the whole year, NCAA tournament included, that would give the rating system or the committee a reason to kind of bump their ranking or their seeding even more down. So, I mean, the Hokies definitely want to host a regional because they get to play the first 2 rounds at home. So, I mean, I think they locked that up today when they beat Miami, but obviously a win tomorrow against a very good Notre Dame team would like further solidify that.
Yeah, I think They should probably stay in that realm of,
Mhm. Yeah.
top 16, but definitely along the lines, thinking the same thing as you, keeping that Kitley news hush as long as
Mhm.
possible. Or,
Yeah.
it could just be because we don't know what the injury is. If there's potential for her to come
Mhm.
back, it's not surprising that they're going to sit her in the ACC tournament. Just give her extra time to rest up and heal and, make sure she's in the best shape possible before making
Yeah.
a very real run at the title potentially.
Yeah, and Kenny Brooks in the presser, he mentioned, something about Achilles injuries. It was I mean, interestingly stated, but, by the looks of it, he said, a week will do a lot of good for Kitley,
Okay.
so whether that means that she's rehabbing her injury right now and maybe she'll be back, or maybe she's not that injured and they're just taking precaution and not playing her in the ACC tournament. I mean, no one really knows except Kenny Brooks and maybe some of the staff and, people working closely with Kelly. But I mean, it definitely leaves a lot of fans um, up in the air about what the injury actually is and if she's okay or not, which um, definitely has been on the minds of a lot of Hokie fans. So, um, I mean, we just have to wait and see once again. I mean, she's already been ruled out of this tournament, so there's not much to really dwell on. It's kind of just, try to rally the troops and, just keep the run to the ACC tournament championship going.
Yeah, it'd be awesome if they could, grab another one and just show that, yeah, we have one of the best players in the country, but it's a team game. We got great
Yeah,
players behind her too, and we can still make waves in D1 basketball without Liz Kitley. That would be a huge statement. But we'll have to see what happens tomorrow with Hokies fighting
yeah.
Irish, 12 o'clock on the ACC network. Going to be a really fun one.
Oh yeah, very fun. I'm excited. I mean, I'll be here, so I hope it's a great game.
Yeah, yeah, we'll definitely have to, keep in contact and
Hmm.
just keep me updated on how stuff is looking if any interesting news
Yep.
pops up.
Will do.
All right, man. Well, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate,
Yep.
giving some insight from, Press Row there in Greensboro and look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Yeah, me too, brother. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. See you, man.